Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I saw this movie yesterday, and I gotta be completely honest with you. It just feels like a film that was destined to fail. It absolutely had no chance. And I'm not just talking about the film itself, whether it's good or bad. I'm talking about the success of the film through the box office. This movie is only tracking a $30 million opening weekend. It only hit $3.4 million on its Thursday night opening, $11.7 million on its Friday opening, and now we're gonna have to see what happens for Saturday and Sunday, but I will not be surprised if this movie completely drops off. There is a vast amount of reasons I think this movie is genuinely failing. I'm obviously going to give you my opinions on why, and I of course will also give you my opinion on the movie as a whole. Usually I like to wait till the end to tell you my review, my rating, which I am going to do, but I will just open up with this and tell you I did not really like it. I think there are some things that are neat and cool. I think it is a huge misfire on DC's part. First of all, a big reason why this movie could be failing is because of the leading man, Zachary Levi. It seems like a lot of people are kind of irritated with him and don't really like him. Personally, me, I got no problem with the guy. I've liked everything he's been in. I think he is a solid choice for Shazam. Although, I gotta say, I do find him a little infuriating in this movie. I do find him a little more annoying. I think in the first Shazam, he executed it perfectly and he was really damn good. In this one, I couldn't help but look at the screen and say, can you please shut up? There are so many times where he rambles on and it's just not a good look. It's not funny. It's not interesting. It's not delivering anything to the character. Some of the comedy he uses in this film, and frankly, some of the comedy in the film in general, is very misplaced. It's like, I get it. We need to, for some reason, have comedy in superhero films all the time now. Shazam is a character that's going to utilize it, and he's going to utilize comedy more than any other character out there in the DC universe. Although sometimes it makes you wonder, do we really need comedy in every single scene at every single moment, even for comedic characters? Even Deadpool does a great job of utilizing serious moments with no comedy. I understand Billy is a kid. I mean, he's almost 18 years old, but I understand the group as a whole are all younger, and I understand they're gonna have a more childish sense of humor and mindset, but sometimes it is just too much. And when you think about it from an audience setting and from a production setting, you can't just have joke after joke after joke, especially when they're not hitting. Out of all the jokes in this movie, I swear to God, my entire theater, which, by the way, there were not many people in this theater, but not many people laughed. I think there are maybe 3 or 4 solid jokes in that film where it got a laugh out of people, and other than that, it just wasn't looking good. Number 2, the clear lack of promotion that this film got. It's outstanding how little we actually got to see of this film through trailers, TV spots, posters, anything out there that you could do to push a film in the right direction to trend it. They didn't do it. Clearly, executives and management in Warner Brothers were so down on this film, they had to resort to showing Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman in the end of the film for TV spots promoting this movie. And unfortunately, it is a case and a situation of whether you loved this movie, liked this movie, thought it was okay, didn't like this movie, doesn't matter how you feel about it. One thing is fact, it's just not doing well. And at the end of the day, that does become one of the most important things about these franchises, about superhero films. If you're not hitting numbers, well, then what's the point in keeping you around or making a third one or whatever you're going to do with that property? Warner Brothers and DC is out here allowing Hollywood trade sites to put out articles about Tom Cruise loving The Flash more than they are talking about the release of their brand new DC film in Shazam. That's how poorly promoted this film is, and that is how little faith they have in this film. Number 3 is the fact that James Gunn has made this whole situation very complicated with his new DCU he's making, and he's not being clear on what these movies really mean to the DCU. Are these being solidified to the old universe, or are these being translated over to his universe? And I think because of that confusion, and also because I think a lot of people are interpreting that it is potentially a hard reboot, or similar to a hard reboot without James Gunn full out telling you that is what it is, a lot of people are thinking to themselves, what is the point of seeing these movies if they bear absolutely no importance to the future of his content storytelling? Although the end credit scene, one of them at least, does show Amelia Harcourt promoting him to the Justice Society, and we all know that's James Gunn's wife. That is another situation that a lot of people have problems with, because now James Gunn is in charge of DC, and now his wife is a big part of the DCU. Basically, she's being used as like a mini Nick Fury, I like to think of it. She's bringing all these heroes together to create a Justice Society. So with her being at the end of that film, does that mean Zachary Levi's Shazam and his Shazam family are coming over to the DCU? How new is that end credit scene? How old is that end credit scene? There's a lot of confusion going on with what James Gunn is doing and what these movies are doing, and I think that is a big reason why a lot of people just don't care about this film and future DCEU films. Number 4, and I think this point is actually the most important one of them all, and it might be one of the biggest reasons it is failing. It's superhero fatigue. It's comic book fatigue. I think a lot of people are hitting the point where they're getting tired with superhero films. I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's all superhero films. I just think it is the generic superhero films, and that is what Shazam is, the first one, and Fury of the Gods. I say this all the time in my videos, but the worst type of superhero movies you can get nowadays is the typical person with superpowers, fights villain, fails, works up the courage at the end of the movie to fight the villain again, wins the battle, and everything goes back to normal. There are no stakes anymore in these movies. There's nothing earned. When we're dealing with IPs and franchises like this that are supposed to be leading to something bigger, when you give me a 2-hour film that has no stakes at all, that you can already clearly see how the movie is going to end, what's the point of it? We all knew this movie was going to present a minor problem, even though they make it look like a massive problem. And at the end of the movie, Shazam was going to defeat this minor problem and everything was going to go back to normal. I think we're just seeing a lot of comic book content nowadays that isn't presenting anything new or fresh or interesting. It's all just these generic storylines, and it's getting super boring. When I watched Shazam, all I could think to myself was, I felt like I've already seen this before. I really hope that it's not the end of these types of stories, but right now it feels like it is. When you look at superhero movies like The Dark Knight, the Batman trilogy in general, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, let's even go to Iron Man, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. They all are a great representation of what the movie itself does for the wider universe and what the movie also does for the characters. It all earns something and also takes something away from them personally. There are stakes in these movies. Essentially, summing it up, you can win the battle, but you have effectively lost the war. In all of those films, the heroes may win at the end, but they always lose something. The problem with a lot of these generic superhero movies nowadays is they're not losing anything. The way the movie begins is the way it ends. They were in a great spot when the movie began, and they're now in a fantastic spot when the movie ends, without losing anything. And I think this is a great indication that especially characters like Shazam, there is a superhero fatigue in the sense that people don't really want to see these, I don't want to call him an unknown character, but in the movie sense to general audiences, unknown characters. They want to see the heavy hitters again because it seems like that's where a lot of the best storytelling comes from, is the heavy hitters. Now, given what the movie is as a whole, personally me, this was already not going to be a movie that is over a 7 or an 8 or anything, because it's not my type of movie. In all honesty, I am a darker tone type of guy. I like my superhero movies darker. That's why I love the Dark Knight trilogy, Zack Snyder's films, Logan, Avengers Infinity War, all those movies. That is what I like to see from my comic book films. I understand that Shazam isn't going to have that. It's not going to be that type of film, but I don't think there would have been any problem in introducing aspects of those tones given the right circumstances, which they just simply did not have. Given who the character of Shazam is, given the world that David Sandberg needed to create surrounding these really immature children, then yes, he did a decent job capturing the characters and capturing the world around him. If you have to make a movie surrounding the tropes of Shazam, he did a solid job with stuff like that. Now, bringing it back to Zachary Levi in Shazam, whereas I did like him in the first one, I mentioned I wasn't really a big fan of him in the second one. I gotta be honest, Freddy, I think, was actually a lot more interesting character in this movie than Billy was. And Adam Brody as Freddy Jr., the adult version, he did such a good job. There were moments where I actually kind of felt he was Shazam, or I wanted him to be Shazam. I almost felt like he might have fit a little bit better. I do like that this movie was not just completely focused and centered on Billy, even though he is the main character. They did give a lot of screen time to Freddy, and I did really like that because I enjoyed his character as a whole. I do find it really disappointing that Mary Marvel was not utilized more. I just felt like they could have done a lot more with her. I feel like you saw her fly a couple of times, do a couple of neat moves, but other than that, I just feel like they maybe took a back seat on her more than I thought they were, because at the end of the day, the main three we always think of is going to be Billy, Freddy, and Mary. And especially in the comic books, Mary is such a big character that sometimes I almost feel like she deserves a comic series on her own outside of Shazam because of how important her character can be. And to see her a little less utilized was a little disappointing. Speaking of being disappointed with characters, Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu in this film were so underutilized, and they just felt like, once again, you're completely generic throwaway villains who have absolutely no stakes to them, because they're going to lose at the end of the film with no consequences to the hero. I mean, their villains are so forgettable that I'm forgetting their names now. The only thing I can relate them to is Atlas's daughters. And there's just no consequences to the character that it almost feels like, since when did the whole Marvel villain trope get sucked into the DC universe? Why are we all of a sudden just forgetting our villains and tossing them away with little importance? Even their fight scenes were somewhat interesting, but they always ended up lacking at the end of it. Like, the fight between Helen Mirren's character and Billy Batson was really cool, and then all of a sudden they started repeating the same moves over and over again. I can't tell you how many times in this film we saw the old pick up, slam on the ground, pick up, slam on the ground. Oh, pick up, what you gonna do? Slam on the ground. Or pick up, smash against the walls. Pick up, smash against the walls. Are we watching the Hulk, or are we watching people with magical powers? And for Lucy Liu's situation as well, all we really saw her do was either shoot the staff or fly around on the dragon and shoot the staff. We didn't see her do much at all, and I don't understand why. The choreography was so poor in this film. You have the opportunity to make these really fast-moving, epically paced, super being fights around cities, knocking people into buildings and utilizing their powers, and they just didn't do it. One of the stupidest things I think they did in this movie is this whole staff that could take away your powers or add your powers back. Why in the world is it sitting in a museum? That thing would be locked away in some deep underground undercover government base. No. They just have it sitting in a museum. It's just so dumb. Like, sometimes it makes me wonder, how dumb do you think your audience is? We can't all be this stupid. I think one of the dumbest things that happened in this movie, and I gotta be honest with you, I dropped my head into my hands in the theater. I did not look up at the screen for a solid 2 minutes because I could not believe what I was seeing with my own eyes. I could not believe what was happening on screen. And it was the whole situation how Lucy Liu planted the golden apple in the Philly stadium, and all of a sudden all these really disgusting hellish creatures were being spawned from these spores, and they just randomly out of nowhere created this convenient idea that, oh, the creature that they're scared of is the unicorn. And when they go find the unicorn, the little girl feeds it Skittles, and it is just pure market and promotion. Skittles got the biggest payday, I can tell you that right now. The cringe, the cheese, the awfulness of that entire scene, it made me drop my face into my hands, and I almost cried out of pure disgust because I could not believe it. And I think what's making me so sick and tired of a lot of these films too is Black Adam did this as well, and there is a whole list of movies, comic book films that have done this. Why is it that at the end of the movie, the main hero has to go out and fight the main villain, but there's always a secondary villain that out of nowhere, regularized humans just decide, let's create a tiny revolt and revolution and stand up against the villains, and let's pick up baseball bats and wrenches and bricks that have fallen off of houses and start fighting that secondary villain, start throwing stones at it. It's so stupid. Black Adam did that when Black Adam and the Justice Society were fighting Sabak. All these humans just randomly rallied together and started fighting the undead. The same thing happened here, where conveniently the Shazam family just keeps stupidly losing their powers from this dumb staff. And what they decide to do is go after these deadly unicorn creatures that conveniently just love Skittles and now trust humans, and now they're riding on the back of the unicorns. Once again, how dumb are we? How dumb does David Sandberg and Warner Brothers and DC think we're supposed to be? I can't get on board with it. I'm sorry, I don't like it. So let's quickly take a look now at the ratings it is holding on IMDb. I think IMDb is a much more reliable rating system than Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, these reviews are subject to change because this movie is still brand new. Right now, for Metascore reviews, it is sitting at a 46 out of 100. And for user reviews, it is sitting at a 6.7 out of 10. Unfortunately, I'm possibly going to disappoint a lot of people, or I'm gonna make a lot of people happy with this. I'm not exactly sure which. I gotta give this movie a 4 out of 10. And to be honest, I'm even surprised I'm not going lower. I just think this movie is bad. Looking back at this film, thinking about the things that are good about the movie is just the fact that David Sandberg clearly understands how to characterize the Shazam family. He knows how to make them younger and immature with young mindsets. He does that really well. I also think he utilized the girl's powers, Athena, or whatever her name is, who could change the axis of the world around her. I think that was really neat. The dragon looked good CGI wise. That's pretty much it. Just so many things I did not like I've already told you many of them, but even stuff like Wonder Woman showing up at the end of the film just to conveniently revive Billy Batson. The death of Billy Batson really means nothing. There are no consequences to this film after all. All these stupid damsels in distress in the bridge sequence who clearly do not have enough brain cells to comprehend your fight or flight. And it's just really dumb having these scenes over and over again where we have to see someone falling into the water in a car where they have to save them. Oh man, this movie did not sit right with me. I'm sorry. I came into this movie thinking it would be very similar to the first one. I thought it was just going to be an okay film. For example, the first Shazam film, I have it at a 6 out of 10. I think it's a fair movie overall. I think it's okay. This one didn't hit for me. I can completely see why it's failing, and I think it's failing for all the right reasons. 100%, I think it was done dirty with its promotion, and I think with a little more accurate promotion, the film would be doing a little bit better, although not by much. This movie is not for me. But anyways, everyone, that is my review for Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I'm sorry if I made people upset, but I do hope you do understand and can see from my perspective why I really don't think this movie's good. So now let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the movie and how you thought of this movie, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, and what your rating would be. But that is all I got for you on this one, guys. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.